Hey guys, welcome back to the From Mourning to Meaning interview series, where we're learning how to break through the intolerable grief and return to meaningful living. I'm 𝗨𝗧𝗿𝗶𝗆, and today I have with me Tracey Massey, who is a breath of fresh air. Tracey inspires women to live an empowered life. She sheds light on a unique perspective of grief. So welcome, Tracey. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored and excited to be here.
Of course, the pleasure is all mine. Now, Tracey, I know that when you've got to this, when I spoke to you, I'm sorry, you were going through your February through May, because I know you've suffered a lot of losses from February through May. If you want to tell us a little bit about that, how you put that apart so that you can take your time on those months.
Well, during those months, like you said, I've had many losses. I lost my mom, my aunt, my godmother, my daughter, my cousin, one of my best friends. So not at the same year, not in the same year, but different years, but all of them happened during that time. And I realized that during that time, I started to just feel out of it, to make it plain. And it was a lot of heaviness, a lot of sadness, a lot of anger, all of the emotions just overwhelmed me during that time. So when I figured out, okay, this is how I feel every year, let me do something that's going to help me heal and recover and just do better during that time. So I started to focus more on things that brought me joy. Because one of the things with dealing with depression is you stop doing things that you enjoy. So I realized, okay, there's a bit of depression that comes along this time of year. So let me do things that I enjoy. And the great thing about it during this season, it's beginning to be spring. So I can get outside and enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the weather. I can hang out with friends when we're not in the middle of a global pandemic. But, things like that help me to just get myself back into a better mind space and a better healthy space and get physical and things like that. So when I realized that this season was approaching, I started to be more proactive than reactive.
That's awesome. And I love how you, it's coincidence that everything is together. It's not always like that, right? But it's so nice that you're able to have it all together and able to take that time. So that's pretty awesome. I thought that was great for people to listen to. So you can see that you do need that time, and to set that out for yourself, realizing that is great. But I know there was one particular experience of yours that led you to where you are today, that led you to grief coaching. What experience was that? If you could tell us a little bit about that story as well.
Well, in 2006, my daughter passed away suddenly. She wasn't sick. She was an athlete. We were at a family dinner and all of the kids were outside playing, and then all of a sudden she collapsed. And I actually had to perform CPR on my daughter. And so she ended up passing away, but that started a trigger. That triggered me. Of course, it would trigger any parent, right? Yeah. But that triggered me to start actually facing my grief, because prior to that, I had lost my mom, I had lost my godmom, but I had never dealt with the losses. Mm-hmm. And so when she left this earth, it was just like, what do I do now? So I really had to face it. And it wasn't until years later that I saw that grief coaching was a thing. And what I found was, when I went to get my certification, I barely made it through the certification because the course was just so depressing. Like, it took me back to a space where I was deep in the dumps, and I was thinking, I am not going to make it through this. I'm actually going to quit. And it took the persuasion of friends and family and mentors who said, Tracey, you're what's needed in this space, because you are totally different than what's out there. And I agree now, because nothing about me looks like grief. And I wanted to put my spin on it and just show people that you can survive, not only survive all of these things, but you can actually thrive through them. you can live life through them. And so now what I do is I teach women who have been affected by tragedies and losses how to disrupt the cycle of grief, because I'm living proof that, yeah, I've had all of these losses, but baby, you can make it. You can be, you know?
I love that. Love that. Now you say that we can disrupt the cycle of grief, but what do you believe is the cycle of grief? How do we notice we're in the cycle of grief?
Oh, okay. So a lot of grief is not a subject that a lot of people talk about or teach or deal with. And I know, like, especially in my communities, a lot of people say, well, just pray about it, you'll be fine. And I'm a huge advocate for prayer. But, you know, it takes a little bit more to get out of that. Like, I use prayer for me as a tool to deal with the grief. So some of the cycles, in no particular order, are anger. There's bargaining. There is, let me think. There's pain and guilt, of course. There is depression. There's hope and acceptance, which a lot of people don't get to, but I'm starting to teach people how to get to that point. There is the upward turn where you start to come out of it, but then something may happen and you kind of go back in a cycle. So a lot of times people don't recognize what these cycles are and when they're hitting. So what I do is teach women how to recognize you're here. So let's do something to help you disrupt it. And when I say disrupt, one thing I want people to realize is that grief does not stop, because grief comes in different ways. It's not just death. It could be you moving to another city. It could be a friendship that ended or a relationship that ended. It could be you leaving a new job. So it just disrupts your life. So you have to disrupt the grief.
Awesome. So you wouldn't so much say that disrupting grief is stopping grief on its tracks. It's basically seeing where you're at in grief at that very moment and stopping the symptom at that moment. Tomorrow might be something else that you might have to disrupt, in other words, right?
Tomorrow will definitely be different. It will definitely. Especially when you first experience a loss, you know, it's going to hit you and you go into shock. So that's actually one of the stages. You go into shock and you're like, did that just really happen? No, that didn't happen. But then something may happen, like you may hear a song that reminds you of that event and it takes you right back. So you always have to think, okay, grief is going to always be present, because once you had something and you lost it, you're going to remember what that thing is, right? Or that person is. So when something triggers you, all of those emotions and those feelings and those stages will pop back up. But then you have to do something to say, wait a minute, I don't have to go down this road again. So let me do this to disrupt it. So yeah, grief is always present.
Yeah, definitely. And I love how you said, going back to something you said in the beginning, how your daughter's passing helped you deal with your mother's passing and all other passings before that as well, because you actually hadn't worked them out yet. How did you come to that realization? Was it, where did you realize, I never got over all those griefs, I just pushed them away?
Oh, okay. Honestly, I went to therapy. So that's one of the things I highly recommend to people, like see a therapist, because I can guarantee that there are underlying traumas or things that have affected you still within you that you haven't worked out. So I didn't realize that I never dealt with my mother's passing until I went to a therapist, and they were like, okay, so tell me about your life. And then all of a sudden I just completely lost it. And I realized, like, I never really dealt with my mom, because what happened was, like what we normally do, something happens, especially women, something happens and we just keep going, because all of a sudden we become the nurturers. And then all of a sudden we're taking care of everybody around us, but we're forgetting about ourselves. So it's those moments when we're in the shower and tears are falling down our faces and we don't understand why. It's probably something that you haven't dealt with that's starting to resurface. And so as we continue to keep going, we're like onions. I know that's a horrible analogy, but we're like onions, and we just have to peel the layers back and get to the source and the core of what is really affecting us. And once you are able to do that, then everything else is kind of like, okay, I've handled that. This is not as bad. I can handle is from that point on out. So, you know, it's really encouraging, honestly, because you get to see how far you've come and you get to see your growth, and you can see like, okay, yeah, I was a hot mess back then, but here I am now, and like, okay, yeah, we're good. We're getting better. We're healing. Like, yeah.
It's true. It's so true. Being able to see yourself and see what you've come from, where you came from and where you are now, it's really empowering. But let me ask you a question then. If sometimes people push it away, they don't deal with the grief and it comes up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then how do we know the difference between not dealing with our grief and disrupting our grief?
Okay. So I can't talk about anybody else but me. So here's how I knew. When I was just the meanest little thing walking this earth, I was snapping at people. I had such road rage, and I didn't understand, like, you know, why am I so angry? Why am I just so mean? And that's not my personality. So anytime that you're in a space where you're not acting like yourself, time to deal with it. It's time to face it. It's time to, you know, say, I can be better. I am better. I am better than this. So let me do something to help myself out. And a lot of times people won't tell you that. This is where you have to have a great support system in your life, because sometimes people won't tell you that, okay, Tracey, you're being a little too, I need you to tone it down. And when you have people in your life who are able to speak into your life and tell you, I need you to tone it down, and not just some random stranger telling you to tone it down, then you know you gotta so I would say pay attention to changes in your personality, changes in your routine. If you stop doing things that you normally love and enjoy, if you stop going around the people that bring light, changes in what you watch on TV, changes in how you eat. And it can be minor things. So you have to really know yourself, and you have to have people in your life to know you as well, so they can tell you, no, ma'am, no, this is something's off, so let's deal with it.
Yeah. So what I'm picking up, tell me if I'm wrong, is more that when you're kind of disregarding grief or not dealing with it, you're kind of ignoring it. So you look the same, you look exactly the same, but there's something that you're obviously not taking care of. When you are trying to disrupt grief, it's because certain emotions are coming out that is not your personality. So we're trying to disrupt it by using other techniques that we'll get to later, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so for our normal self going forward, we're not dealing with it, because we obviously need to take it out in some way, some shape or form,
yes.
some emotion.
Yes, and it will come out. It will come out. So I tell my clients, you know, we have to deal with this before it deals with you, because you end up destroying yourself, but then after you destroy yourself, you're actually destroying everything around you. And then one day you look up and there's nobody there, and you're wondering why nobody deals with you or nobody is there to support you. It could be that you pushed everyone away. So deal with it before it deals with you.
Yeah, definitely. That's very true. I didn't think of it that way. And then sometimes if it starts dealing with us, as you say, we might feel even worse later, because that's when even more isolation and even more, why don't they talk to me? Why don't they help me? Why am I in this alone type of thing comes in. But in reality, we've probably created that around us without realizing it.
Yeah. And it's not intentional. It's not intentional, but a lot of times once the damage is done, I'm not saying that it can't be repaired, but you're going to have to do a lot more work to repair it than you would if you were dealing with it as it was happening. So I'm not even going to lie. I want everybody to understand it takes work. It takes work, but the work is worth it.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. So let me ask you then, what are some tools that we can use to break through these cycles? Like, for example, let's go through some of the emotions and what things we can do to kind of change from these. Because I know you said sometimes we act like we're not ourselves, so we try to bring on the things that we do normally do. But through each emotion, when we realize it, what can we do to change that?
Okay, one thing, like I said earlier, I highly recommend is see a therapist, see a licensed therapist, and make sure that there's not some kind of trauma that happened in your life. It could be in childhood, it could be teen, it could be adulthood, but see a licensed therapist to work through those past issues. If you have been seeing a therapist for a long time, add a coach into your midst, like add a coach who can help you deal with the now and move forward. One practical thing that you can do, I highly recommend journaling, and it can be whether written or you can do a blog, but just to talk out what it is that you're dealing with, because I love journaling because it shows you your progress. I can look back at the journal that I had in 2006 when my daughter passed away. A dear friend of mine gave me a journal the 2 days before my daughter's funeral. And I can see what I was feeling 2 days before I had to bury her, and see the growth and the transformation and the change and the strength and the peace, all of those things that came out of it. And it really encouraged me, because like I was a hot mess when my daughter left.
Normal.
But journaling definitely helps. If you love the outdoors, get out and get some vitamin D. Sunshine is a great thing for the body. Vitamin D, it just helps to reset your mind, because you get out, and I say do things like put your feet in some water, put your feet in the grass, pay attention to what it feels like on your skin. If the wind blows, just allow the wind to just touch your skin and just feel what that feels like. And it reminds you that you're still here and you still have purpose. Watch the birds fly, listen to the birds sing, things like that. Just get out and do. Music. I recommend music. I love to put on worship music. I love certain artists that I put on. Like, you put on some Beyonce for me and I turn into her. Like, you cannot tell me that I'm not Beyonce. And just get up, you find yourself dancing, and that helps you to get active and just move around, because a lot of times we don't feel like getting out of bed. And I also say extend grace to yourself. There may be days where if you just sit up in the bed, that is a victory. If you put your feet on the floor, yes, that is a victory. I wasn't able to do that yesterday. If you get up and go brush your teeth, baby, you win. You are winning. So make sure that you're looking at those little things, those little victories, and count them up. One great thing that I do as well, it's called a gratitude jar. So what you do is you take a jar, like a little mason jar or anything that has a twist top or a cap on it, and you just take slips of paper and write down something that you're grateful for. Write down something that happened today. Like for instance, I am grateful that I sat up in bed today. Put that in your gratitude jar. And so when you're having a moment, open up that jar and just read the small victories that you've had, and it changes your mindset.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something I once told someone who was also going through the death of a father, and she reached out to me, and I was telling her, and she had this thing that she wanted to get better so fast, that she wanted herself to do so much. Yeah. And that was one thing I really told her. I mentioned to her how, like you said, getting out of bed is a huge victory. If that's something you can't do, then that's a victory. And I think that goes back to something you said as well with writing and all that and going out to the outdoors. Sometimes we don't feel like doing that, right? So, for example, we go to write. Sometimes we're only going to be able to write one sentence, but hey, we're writing down one sentence, and little by little, it's going to come out. It's going to flow out. And before you know it, you're 3 months out and you're like on page 5 and you're like, I got 3 more to go to tell everything that I'm feeling. But It starts somewhere. We have to start with that one word. Just like with that 1 foot out the door, you might not want to be there, but 10 minutes to just get out, do something different, feel a little bit of fresh air, some light on you. Mm-hmm. And those little things, people think it has to be so big, and it really doesn't. Just the smallest things make the biggest difference. And we have to be proud of those. We really do. I love the mason jar idea, because we really do have to be proud of those small moments that we do and the small victories that come across, because there's some every day we just sometimes say, nope, that's not one, right? We just disregard it completely, although it's right there. So that's awesome. It's true. Very true.
And it's those small victories. If you look at the how water runs. So say you have a small stream of water, and hundreds of years later, you go back to that same space, because the water kept flowing, it's going to go through the grass, the dirt, the rock. Next thing you know, you have a waterfall. Not next thing you know, but thousands of years later, you have beautiful waterfalls. You know, volcanoes erupt, and then it doesn't make islands instantly. But if you look at the Hawaiian Islands in the US, they started from volcanoes, but it took hundreds of thousands of years before that happened. So you have to think too, that's how your grief process is going to go. It's not going to happen overnight, but if you keep doing these small little things, they become ginormous things. And next thing you know, you're standing on top of this mountain looking at your beautiful waterfalls. And you can look back at your life and think, wow, I did that. I made it through that. So you really feel like, okay, I can accomplish anything, which is where my wish is for everyone to be, is to realize that even though you've been affected by this thing or these things, you are still here. You are still here with purpose. You are still here. You matter to somebody. So don't think that you are not worthy of these victories, because you are. You are.
Definitely, definitely. And everyone needs to know that and needs to hear that, because sometimes they forget. So it's very important that they understand that. Mm-hmm. Definitely. And talking about small victories, I know we're going to go really small right now, because we're doing small victories, because sometimes it's just harder to go a little bit bigger. So would you say that finding ways to improve your mood comes before your mindset, or is it together?
I believe it's together. I believe it's together, because it first starts in your mindset. You know, for instance, prime example, just my past grief season, there were days where I didn't want to get out of bed. So I would literally roll over and roll over on my back and just say out loud to myself, Tracey, you are worthy of sitting up in this bed. You can do this, girl. Come on, activate those abs. Let's go. And until I did it, I really got on my own nerves. So until I did it, I would keep saying, come on, Tracey, you can do it. Sit up in the bed. And when I sat up in the bed, it was like, okay, next thing, put your feet on the floor. So I really had to change my mindset, because those mornings when I was waking up in tears, that was the fight. I knew that I was going to have to do something to make myself get up. So once I got up and then I looked at myself in the mirror, even with tears streaming down my face, I would say, okay, Tracey, you can wash your face, you can get it done. So yeah, start with the mindset and then apply the action, and the action changes your mood. So it's like a formula: mindset, action, mood. Ma'am.
Love that, ma'am. That's awesome. So mindset, action, mood. So it actually all starts with the mindset, and then that's what triggers everything else.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
So we can't just tell ourselves we're angry, be happy, be happy, be happy.
No,
we actually have to
no, that actually, here's another funny story. In my grief season, I know the dominant stage of grief for me is anger. So I would do things like kickboxing. Mm-hmm. And so I would go do kickboxing, which is some kind of exercise to get my body moving. And then I would say to myself, I got this, I'm happy. But I'm working out the anger, so I don't actually go and punch somebody like a real person. So So I'm going to apply the action to work out this anger, because I can't be going around punching people. That's not cute. So let me find a way to work this anger out and be a good person to society.
Definitely. So not just finding things that we like to get back to our mood, but finding ways to reflect that emotion, so that we don't put it on someone else.
Yes, that's not cute. We got to keep it classy.
That's awesome. Awesome. Now, I know that for everybody listening, you do have something that you want to offer them. So if you want to take the floor and share them a little bit of what you're giving them.
Yes, I sound like 𝗵𝗵𝗰𝗲𝘰. So for everyone, so for everyone who's watching, and I am offering a 20-minute discovery call, so we can go through and see if you are a good fit for coaching. I have a new coaching program that is coming out in, actually, by the time this airs in July. My new coaching program is coming out, and what it is it's a 6-month coaching program where we get one-on-one, you and me, dealing with this grief, baby. We're going to disrupt it, and we're going to get you back on track so you can live life empowered. So 20-minute coaching call is absolutely free, no commitment. So yeah, check that out.
Awesome. And I will be giving you guys the link to that. So don't worry, you guys can find the link, go straight to there, give her a call. It's only 20 minutes and it's free. It's just to see if you guys are ready for the coaching. And if it's something you guys even like, just give it a try. No hurt. It could only help. So awesome.
Right.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, I want to know one thing. If you can just leave our watchers with one thing, I know there's probably a million things you want to leave them with, but if you can only leave them with one thing, what do you think will be the best tip that they can have right now at this moment?
Right now at this moment, I would say grant yourself some grace. You are doing the best you can in the situation that you're in. And celebrate each and every small victory that you have. Because again, those small victories lead to ginormous things. And I just want you to know that grief is not something that stops you. It can be something that elevates you. Just give yourself time, give yourself grace, and do the work because you are worthy of it. Okay?
Definitely. And you guys really are worthy of it. So do the work and give yourself some grace. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tracey, for joining us. I really appreciate you jumping on, and I am more than sure that everyone on here also appreciates you coming, giving them that fresh air of yours, that light. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the From Morning to Meaning interview series, and we'll see you again for the next one. Bye, guys.